tonight, fighting for LGBTQ rights at the state capitol.
They'll never want to admit that the things they're talking about under the guise of protecting kids is actually harming kids.
How LGBTQ lawmakers are pushing back as dozens of Republican-led bills targeting their community gain traction. Plus, keeping inmates cool during triple-digit summers. We're joined live by a Texas lawmaker reviving the debate to install air conditioning in all state prisons. And later, after banning almost all abortions in the state, there appears to be growing support to make certain baby products exempt from sales tax. Capitol Tonight starts right now. It's a scene that's becoming familiar at the Texas Capitol this legislative session. Hundreds of LGBTQ rights advocates rallying against Republican-led bills they say would hurt Texans. This includes proposals targeting transgender athletes in college sports, banning gender-affirming care for minors, and restricting drag shows. In the middle of these debates are the 9 LGBTQ lawmakers in the legislature. Our Charlotte Scott spoke with several of them about their personal push to protect their community.
I think it is vitally important for folks to see that I am here as an open out member, married to my wife, Sonia Cuellar.
Houston area Representative Ann Johnson says it took her years of crying, praying, and speaking with her family to realize that nothing was wrong with her for being lesbian. Now she wants LGBTQ Texans to know that she's in the Capitol fighting for them.
And the closet is a dark place. It's a painful place. It's a hurtful place. And a lot of folks don't make it out of the closet.
She worries that rhetoric at the Capitol about trans youth and their access to health care will push more kids into the darkness.
And I think we'd be better for having understanding and compassion and the willingness to accept and learn from their struggles as opposed to making life worse.
They decide to push the envelope as far as they can, thinking that we will back down.
Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and other Republicans are determined to block children from gender-affirming treatments and limit lessons on gender and sexuality in public schools. And Tuesday, the full Senate initially okayed a bill to ban trans women from playing in women's sports.
At the end of the day, the common string in all of these bills is that we're trying to protect people. We're trying to protect children.
But members of the LGBTQ community say what would actually protect them is acceptance and access to quality health care.
We're going to make sure that we fight as many of these bills as possible.
Dallas area Representative Venton Jones says it's disappointing to see so much legislation that he says would be bad for LGBTQ Texans.
As someone who is a part of and live at the intersection of several marginalized communities right now, it is important for me to make sure that I continue to fight.
A fight he and other members of the LGBTQ caucus are up for, even if they'd rather see a greater focus on education, healthcare, and energy issues.
It's frustrating and quite frankly exhausting to have to show up here every day and try to remind some of our colleagues of our humanity. But what keeps me motivated every day is trying to protect kids.
It's a sentiment that many LGBTQ lawmakers carry with them as they gear up for debates on the House floor.
My parents taught me the most important lesson, which is to speak for those who can't speak for themselves. And it is because I'm an elected lesbian that I can go to that mic and speak on behalf of folks that are often excluded.
A push to make Texas more inclusive for the LGBTQ community by lawmakers who are a part of it. For Capitol Tonight, I'm Charlotte Scott.
Charlotte, thank you. Every summer, Texas prisoners and officers live and work in temperatures that go well into triple digits. Despite this, more than 2/3 of the state's 100 prisons do not have air conditioning in most living areas. It's been an issue for years, and one state lawmaker is once again pushing to require ACs in state-run facilities. During a House committee hearing today, he noted the state has the money to do it this year, given the budget surplus.
To not have AC in our prisons is void of human dignity. It's time. And this is our opportunity.
Last legislative session, the House passed a bill to install air conditioning at state prisons by 2029, but it did not pass out of the Senate. And with us now to discuss his bill further is Representative Carl Sherman of DeSoto in North Texas. Representative, welcome to the program. Thanks for being with us. First of all,
Thank you.
Our pleasure. What is the price tag of this bill?
The fiscal note associated with this bill
I think that his shot froze. Hopefully we can get back to him in just a little bit. Let's move on right now until we can get his shot fixed. Hopefully we can get you back on, Representative. Meanwhile, the Texas Commission that regulates the power grid is appealing a court ruling over electricity costs following the 2021 winter storm. A court ruled earlier this month that the Public Utility Commission overstepped when it let electric companies charge maximum rates during the storm and kept prices high long after power was restored. The state's independent monitor estimates the PUC overcharged Texans to the tune of $16 billion. The PUC asked the state Supreme Court to overturn the ruling. I think we do have Representative Sherman back with us. Are you there with us? Yeah, looks like you are. First of all, let's pick up where we left off. What is the price tag of this bill to put air conditioning in all the living areas of all state-run facilities?
Interestingly, the fiscal note associated with this bill continues to be $1.1 billion since 2019 fiscal year. Appropriations under the leadership of Chairman Bonin has allocated $319 million for the state to address the issue of addressing the void in the profession for professional treatment of our correctional officers who are subjected to these temperatures, along with the inhumanity and dehumanization of those that are incarcerated in our system. So currently $319 million has been allocated for addressing this issue.
Well, and pushing that money higher to make sure that it is done in the way that you would like to have it done. I mean, what are you hearing from lawmakers who have been hesitant to pass this in the past?
Well, I'm encouraged with the joint authorship of Chairman Bonin and Chairman Leach, as well as Dr. Allen, that we will have the support for this. At the end of the day, we require AC for animal shelters, and I know this as a former city manager. If you do not have AC for your animal shelters, that's an offense. And the Bible says in Proverbs 12:10 that a good person treats their animals right. These are human beings, and we have a moral obligation to provide humane temperatures inside our prisons.
Representative, the Texas Department of Criminal Justice has taken steps to try to lessen the suffering. I mean, they cooled a geriatric prison for one. They've provided ice water. I mean, how has that helped?
Well, it has helped. The PAC unit, which is the geriatric unit that you are mentioning, the prison system now has AC. TDC had reported initially that it would cost an estimated $20 million. It actually cost $4 million, but we didn't get there until Suddenlink, a $7 million lawsuit. So it is costing us more when we are fighting, providing AC and humane conditions for those who work in our prison systems, as well as those who are incarcerated. And you think about it, when we removed undocumented or we placed undocumented folks inside 2 of our prisons, we removed Texans out of those prisons. But in order to accommodate non-Texans, non-Americans, we installed temporary AC. The question is, why will we do that for non-Americans, non-Texans, and not do it for Texans?
Representative Carl Sherman, we will have to leave it there. We'll continue to follow this bill and get you back on as it progresses. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Turning now to the Texas-Mexico border, where at least 40 migrants are dead and 30 others injured after a fire at a migrant shelter in Juarez. Officials say nearly 70 people were staying there at the time. The president of Mexico says migrants lit sleeping mats on fire after finding out they were going to be deported. Our Luis Garcia is in Juarez with more on the aftermath of the fire.
A fire caused by a group of migrants who protested for being detained at the National Migration Institute in Ciudad Juárez caused the death of more than 40 people. And Eduardo Montoya, who was already detained there, has an idea of what could have happened.
En ese centro yo estuve preso 8 días y te comento que allá adentro es duro, hermano. Allá a las personas de migración, tú le dices, te doy $20, me pasa cigarrillos y te pasan cigarrillos con encendedores, por lo cual ya se pueden estar dando de cuenta por qué pasó ese suceso.
In a statement, the National Migration Institute of Mexico regrets the events that occurred and expressed its willingness to assist in legal investigations, but Eduardo assures that it is the same institute agents who hurt and extort them.
Cuando a mí me atrapa migración, o sea, te tratan de una manera como si fueras un preso que se ha escapado de las cárceles, te agarran, te ponen la rodilla en el cuello, te retienen el piso, a veces te atrancan la respiración como para que no te muevas, sabiendo que estamos cansados de correr, hermano. ¿Quién quiere correr, hermano? No queremos correr.
Indolentes, asesinos, pero allá arriba hay un Dios que para abajo de ellos se van a ir a este mundo que paguen todo lo que han hecho. ¡Asesinos!
More than 100 migrants, mostly Venezuelans, came to make an offering for their deceased compatriots and protest the mishandling of the situation by the Mexican Immigration Institute, and some migrants even blamed them for the fire.
¿Por qué, sabiendo que cuando nos detienen nos quitan todas las pertenencias, cómo van a explicar que había un encendedor dentro de ahí? ¿Cómo van a explicar esas quemadas negras? Eso significa que hubo combustible. No somos ignorantes, somos personas profesionales y estudiadas.
For now, the Mexican authorities have the task of identifying the victims and clarifying what happened.
Los que se quemaron, que fueron amigos míos que estuvieron allá adentro, que no sé si están muertos o están vivos, no sé nada de ellos.
That was Luis Garcia reporting. Still to come on Capitol tonight, a controversial voucher proposal is advancing. Legislative hurdles the bill still faces. Plus, why some Texas groups are resuming funding out-of-state abortions. Welcome back. Let's get a check now of some of the other political stories making headlines across Texas. A Texas Senate panel advanced a voucher-like bill that would give families up to $8,000 taxpayer dollars per student to pay for private school. The measure now heads to the full Senate, where it's likely to pass. The proposal faces an uncertain future in the House, where Democrats and rural Republicans have historically opposed vouchers. Some Texas abortion funds are resuming efforts to help people access out-of-state abortions. This comes after a court ruled Texas could not use old laws to stop organizations from helping people access abortions in states where it's legal. The Guttmacher Institute found the average Texan would have to drive at least 515 miles to get an abortion legally. And the Texas House is moving forward on a bill to eliminate the sales tax on goods like feminine hygiene products and diapers. The legislation is a priority for Speaker Dade Phelan and received bipartisan support. It needs to pass one more vote in the House before it's sent to the Senate. We want to bring in our political analyst now to discuss what's happening at the Texas legislature. Joining us this evening, Republican John Whitman, who's a partner at Plus Communications, and Jamar Brown, the executive director of the Texas Democratic Party. Good to see you both.
Good to see you.
Let's talk about this exemption on sales tax for certain products. Bipartisan support, John, for ending this sales tax for these certain items. I mean, this bill really gained momentum since the abortion ban in Texas went into effect. I mean, how much is this Republican lawmakers wanting to really kind of, do more for women and children?
Yeah, well, first of all, as a Republican, I think eliminating any tax is good. But, I think that this is Dade Phelan following up on his commitment to Texas families and to Texas women. And the reality is Dade Phelan is a strong Catholic who's very pro-life, and he is taking that to the next step, ensuring that families now won't have to pay tax on diapers and baby formula and things like that, and women won't have to pay on menstrual products. And so, Dade Phelan's made this priority. The Lieutenant Governor, as well as Senator Joan Huffman, who chairs the Senate Finance Committee, which is where this bill goes next, have said that they would like to see this pass. The governor has voiced his support for it. So I see this passing with flying colors.
As a woman for obvious reasons, but as a new mom, I know you've got new kids, diapers and the tax on that. Anything to get those a little cheaper would be
The
great.
average family spends, I think, for one child can spend $100 a month on diapers, and that's a big savings for a lot of Texas families.
Yeah, it for sure is. I mean, Jamar, this looks like it's got the support to pass this year. I know Representative Donna Howard has been pushing this for a long time. I mean, how much do you think this could help women and children?
Absolutely. I mean, to John's point, to your point, I think it helps people save costs, and I think that we should be working together as Democrats and Republicans, quite frankly, to make sure that we're lowering costs so that it impacts people's quality of life, and that's super important, and how we can eliminate barriers to people getting the basic things that they need to live their lives and raise their families.
How much more bipartisan support do you see on legislation moving forward?
That's a tough call, Karina. The reality is you're right. This is a common sense bill, and there's plenty of bipartisan support for it. We'll see. We're really now getting to the nitty gritty of session, and there are always things that we can come together on. Things like property tax cuts, I think, is going to get a lot of bipartisan support this session, and that's a huge priority for both the House and the Senate. So
which way to do it?
That's right. That's right, and that's more of a House versus Senate deal as opposed to Republican versus Democrat. And so, that's right. So we'll see, but we're just now getting into the nitty gritty. I think there are more opportunities for bipartisan bills.
Yeah, what's your take on that, especially as the minority party and pushing some of these?
Yeah, well, one of the things, we always have tried to push for bipartisan bills. We know the budget is coming up soon. Right. We'll see how that conversation goes. But we'll see. I mean, there's been some opportunity, and we've seen the Speaker even put forward Democratic bills, and we're very excited about that. There's a bill, for example, by Tony Rose to expand the Medicaid coverage after childbirth, and so we want to push those kind of bills, but there's some other dangerous bills that we won't be supporting. But I think that, we have to see where we go and how the Speaker and Lieutenant Governor move those through their respective bodies.
Yeah, and I think there are also things like infrastructure, right? Roads, bridges, things like that have a lot of support on both sides of the aisle. And so we'll see those things move forward and obviously funded through the budget. I think rural broadband is another thing that is a huge priority for both the Lieutenant Governor, the Governor, and the Speaker. And so that'll be another one that I think will get plenty of bipartisan support.
Yeah, I think a bill being heard tomorrow in a House committee on rural broadband.
Yes.
John, we haven't heard a lot about other anti-abortion bills this session. I mean, do you think Republicans have gone as far as they can go with the near total ban on abortion? I mean, do you see that being much of an argument this time around?
It doesn't seem to be dominating the conversation this session, and I think that's partly because of the pro-life laws that were passed last session and signed by Governor Abbott. Texas is leading on this issue, and they continue to do so. But again, it's not dominating the conversation because of all the strong pro-life laws that have already been passed and signed by the governor.
Jamar, I know that early on there was some Republican support for making exceptions for rape and incest to the abortion ban. I mean, what do you think will come of that? Maybe both of you should weigh in on this.
Well, I think back to the other question too is that, it's pretty much banned in the state in a lot of ways, right? And so there's not much more that they could do. But what we're seeing now is that Republicans are targeting trans youth, LGBTQ plus Texans, et cetera. And so I think that's something that we're looking at and we've got to watch and make sure that we're protecting children, especially in this state. And I think we should agree on protecting children in this state. And then the other piece that's important when we look at exceptions, that's something we've been trying to push. And we put several amendments forward when they were passing those bits of legislation to do that. And we got a lot of no votes from the other party when we were trying to push those amendments even to the bills that they were putting forward.
Yeah, I mean, we'll kind of see how all of this goes. I think we're going to have to end the conversation there tonight, but things we'll continue to talk about. John, Jamar, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
good to see you.
Still to come on Capitol tonight, a stalemate over spending, why progress has stalled on budget negotiations in Washington. A federal judge ruled former Vice President Mike Pence must testify about conversations he had with former President Donald Trump before the January 6th insurrection. According to court documents, Pence has to answer questions about the days leading up to the attack, but he can decline to discuss his actions on January 6th itself. He was serving as president of the Senate and certifying election results during that time. Pence was issued a grand jury subpoena to testify as part of special counsel Jack Smith's investigation into the riot. He can still appeal the decision. U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy demanded President Biden start negotiating with him over raising the nation's borrowing limit, warning, "You are on the clock." But the White House says there's nothing to discuss until McCarthy and House Republicans spell out the deep spending cuts they want to make. Our Washington reporter Rena Diamante has the latest.
President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy met on February 1st to begin talking about raising the nation's borrowing limit. The two have not had a follow-up sit-down, nor is one scheduled. On Tuesday, McCarthy wrote Biden criticizing the president for not doing more.
I sat down with the president to negotiate a debt ceiling. The president has misled the members of Congress, misled the American public that he was going to negotiate. He hasn't done that.
The government will be unable to pay its bills as soon as June, potentially tanking the economy until the borrowing limit is lifted. But House Republicans say they will not agree to raise the debt ceiling unless Biden agrees to spending cuts. In his letter, Speaker McCarthy outlined broad ideas to achieve savings, including reclaiming unspent COVID-19 relief funds and strengthening work requirements for social programs.
Bullet points don't make a budget. And what we want to see out of House Republicans is what is your budget? What do you value?
Biden and the Democrats say there is nothing to negotiate until House Republicans propose a budget, laying out what cuts they want to make. Something McCarthy has promised but has not yet done after Biden proposed his budget earlier this month. McCarthy didn't say when House Republicans will release their plan, although it is believed they have not yet agreed among themselves on what to cut.
We believe we should shrink Washington and grow America. We should return the bureaucratic spending to pre-COVID levels. We're not asking for anything wild-eyed.
Biden also is insisting on raising the debt limit with no strings attached. The White House press secretary said it's time for House Republicans to stop playing games, pass a clean debt ceiling bill, and quit threatening our economic recovery. McCarthy says he wants the White House to contact his office by the end of this week to schedule a meeting. But it appears the deadlock between Democrats and Republicans is not going to end anytime soon. In Washington, Rena Diamante, Capital Tonight.
And that is going to do it for us tonight. We're back tomorrow with the latest in Texas politics. Until then, thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. And for more refreshing stories about your community, click the subscribe button right over here. You can also download our Spectrum News app to get live news coverage, weather alerts, and more wherever you are. And don't forget to tune in to Channel 55 on Dish and DirecTV for live local reporting every single day. We'll see you then.